It is 6:04, and I'm going to call the May 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Ann Arbor Independent Community Police Oversight Commission to order. Going to ask Ms. Janess to call the roll.
Thank you. This meeting will be broadcast live on CTN Channel 16, ATT Channel 99, online at a2gov.org, watch CTN. Public commentary can be made in person or by calling 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099. Enter meeting ID 935-1520-9819. Chair Carter.
Here.
Commissioner Shipp is absent. Commissioner Jackson.
Present.
Commissioner Pipkin.
Present.
Councilmember Song.
Here.
Councilmember Harrison. Absent. Commissioner Offman.
Present.
Vice Chair Tadoro Hargraves.
Here.
Commissioner Billups.
Here.
Commissioner Milgram.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Oh, okay, good, thank you. At this time, if you've had a chance to take a look at your agenda, I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda for today's meeting. Lisa.
Make a motion to approve the agenda for May meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. The agenda is approved, and now I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion of the minutes from the last meeting? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved as written. At this time is our public forum. Ms. Janess, do we have anyone online?
No, not presently.
Okay. Is anyone present at the meeting that wishes to speak? All right. Next is a report from the chair. And I have several things to talk about today. And I'm going to start with, I'd like to talk about our summer schedule. As some of you know, we are, according to the ordinance, we are supposed to meet every other month. But our business is such that we have met more often. I think we need to continue meeting more often. But the summer, someone mentioned to me that they might be gone. I'm going to be gone for part of the summer, and so I did ask the question of our city attorney's office whether there was any way that we could have the meeting in person and one person be away, and that is apparently not possible unless the person has something under the ADA or that they cannot attend. So there may be some times when we will not have a quorum, but we might still want to get together to discuss what has been going on. I'd like to know what the pleasure is of the commissioners with regard to meeting through the summer. My thought is maybe we could take August off. I think last year we took July off.
Yes.
Maybe we can take July and August off. I think the important thing is that our subcommittees continue to work, even though we're not having our commission meeting. So what do you all think? What do we want to do for this summer?
I'm good with July and August off.
Both off? Anybody else? No preferences?
I mean, I personally know I'll be gone in August, so I wouldn't be able to attend. I would just say, I mean, whatever the consensus is here is fine with me, but I would say though that thought, I enjoyed the opportunities to have meetings in the summer at other places. So if we do meet this summer, maybe we could have at least one of those off-site.
And that was a thought too. I'm going to share some of the thoughts with regard to a summer meeting outside. Last year, we had a couple of them. They weren't particularly well attended by the public. More. Yeah, that is true. They were more well attended than when we have our meetings inside. And a thought, and I know that this idea sort of came from Commissioner Jackson, if we have a theme that we kind of advertise that people might be interested in, and come out to hear a discussion about a particular issue. For instance, but it has been almost 3 years exactly since George Floyd was murdered. That was May 25th of 2020. The George Floyd Policing Act was not passed through Congress. Maybe that's something that we could have a discussion about. I also thought today or yesterday, the governor signed Michigan's red flag law. And of course, that's the law that allows police officers to come to court and get a court order to remove a weapon from someone who's determined to be dangerous. I thought that might be interesting, and maybe we could even get someone from the department to come out and give a perspective. I know that some of the outlying sheriff's departments have said they're not going to enforce it. So I don't know what that means. So if anybody, that kind of idea of having a meeting outside and inviting people. Another thing that I thought, and this is sort of coming up later, but we have received, thank you, Dr. Karpiak, the draft of the report on traffic stops. So maybe that would be a good time to share that information with the public. So what do you think? Yes for summer meeting, yes outside, take off 2 months, come back in September and have an outside meeting? I don't know if it's feasible now to actually set something up for the June meeting. But what is your pleasure, commissioners?
I know I'm questionable for the July meeting, so I don't know if I'll be able to make the July meeting.
So traffic stops are the number one way that people all across the country come in contact with police. We know that there are significant disparities in the ways in which different groups of people get stopped. Michigan State Police has released their data, and that was statewide and countywide, and we know that's the case, and the draft appears to confirm that for AAPD as well. And I think there have been lots of people across the community waiting for the traffic stop report to come out. That's always an interesting thing to talk about. I think one of the primary reasons why it was so important to conduct the research is to go to the community and present the data and just say, here they are. Here's how traffic stops are conducted. Is this in keeping with how you want to be policed? I think that's, a valid question for people. The traffic stop report doesn't talk about, very explicitly does not talk about bias or racial targeting. It just talks about what the traffic stops are. It does not come to those conclusions, and it was never intended to do that. Yet, if you're a driver here of color, you may feel as if you have been stopped disproportionately. And I think lots of people are interested in that. So as a topic goes, I think that's probably a topic that would garner some attention. Certainly 3 years post George Floyd, and have we made any progress? If so, what is that? What should we be optimistic? Whatever is certainly a good topic. So I think you have a bunch of things to work with there.
So that report is currently in a draft form, I believe, and when do we get it in a final form?
Well, I'm going to ask Professor Karpiak, who's here, to talk about the report and the draft, and maybe he can give us that information. Maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse. Why don't we decide first?
Yeah, Chair, I was only mentioning it because I think it's such an important report.
Yes.
The timing of when we actually, the public gets it and when we can have some kind of public forum to discuss it, and when we can have the majority of people there to be a part of the process. I don't know if August is the month for that. I think people are gone a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have time in July to do it, and do we want to wait till September, or are we able to do it in June? So that's why my question is to when we might get the report, so.
Let me ask Professor Karpiak, who's here, would you mind, this is a draft. Do you think September, do you think it's a good idea, first of all, for us to use this as an open meeting, kind of invite the public to hear about when it is finalized?
I don't have an opinion of how you choose to use your time. I'm happy to come and talk about it, either in a formal meeting or in some other kind of event. It is a draft, but it's very close to final. What I actually would like to see is just some feedback from yourself and Arbor PD as well, just to have some last eyes on it before we release it. But beyond that, there's not much more I plan on to do to it.
That's the thing, too, because we had also talked about sharing it with the city and the police department before.
He did that.
I sent it to them at the same time. I sent it to yourselves, the Arbor PD, and the
I mean,
city
for a
manager.
discussion.
Yeah.
Right, that was.
Before it's open to the public for discussion.
That was one of our intents, was to use this as a discussion point with the Ann Arbor Police.
So maybe we can do that in June. Is September a good time for you?
Sure.
And it will be final by then?
It could be final as soon as I get feedback from your body and the Ann Arbor PD.
Yeah, so we need to get together first
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. I think what we need to do is basically to have the data presented to us before we go out to the public and make fools of ourselves. We really want to make sure that we understand everything that's being said, and Dr. Karpiak would be probably available for us to probably present some of the information to the public, and we'll be aware of the details of the draft or of the report. If we go out, just read the report, and everyone has his or her own interpretation, it does not come across as it was thoroughly done. But if we have that presented to us, we know the ins and outs, which points we need to focus on, because the report would be, you can't discuss everything in the report. You can focus on few things.
Okay.
And those ones are obvious, and those ones can be communicated to the public and see what the public has to say about the report. I think we need ourselves to understand that. And that can be done even if there is no session, during June, July, August. This stuff can be done. And then if September is a good time to have the public forum, that would be fine. We can go out and meet the public.
Commissioner Milgram?
If I could suggest that perhaps, I just got it an hour ago, I think, right?
We all did.
Right.
That's
We all
right.
did.
So perhaps we could read it this month and send our comments to you, Dr. Karpiak, and then perhaps we could be prepared to address those at our June meeting. And then, to me, it sounds like most people are thinking, let's take July and August off, but we can prepare behind the scenes for a September unveiling of this report in a public forum, perhaps outside, in lieu of a meeting.
Okay.
So it seems like there are a few things being conflated. So one, it might be helpful if Dr. Karpiak lets you know what kind of feedback he needs back before the report becomes public, one. Two, whether or not you discuss with police together, separately, or whatever, should not have any bearing on whether the report is released. I mean, you guys, if you all have decided you don't want the report released until you've talked to AAPD, then that's fine. But that's a completely separate issue from him making it public, and it's a completely separate issue from discussing the report at a meeting. So that's three. And so I would suggest that, you get a handle on what kind of feedback might be helpful to Dr. Karpiak such that he can make it public, but that the public should probably have the opportunity to get their hands on a copy before you discuss it in public. So if you want to discuss it in public, maybe you need to get feedback to Dr. Karpiak in June such that it can be made public in July and people can digest it, and then they can talk about that in your September meeting if that's when you choose to discuss it. But probably having some deep dive into the data and being prepared to answer questions should not prevent the report from becoming public.
When you say prevent it from becoming public,
He's doing the courtesy of allowing this body to give him some feedback and AAPD to give him some feedback before he releases it. But as he indicated, the analyses are done. They are not going to change. He did not say that. But the analyses are done. The numbers will not change. And so, feedback, I'm sure from you all, is something that might be incorporated into a discussion section. But it's not, the report itself isn't substantively, the findings will not change. And so whether you discuss that or not, or deep dive into it and analyze it ourselves or not, the report needs to be out there.
how do you plan to release it to the public?
We haven't discussed that. I would like eventually to be able to put it up on Smart's kind of website, along with hopefully a version of the data as well, so that people could download it and do their own analyses. But the timeline of that, I want to make sure that you're comfortable with that.
So, okay, let's.
My question, Chair, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
About the timeline was only based upon making sure that we got the biggest bang for the buck for people to be here.
Right.
I just don't want it to be released and for us to, not have the opportunity for the public to see it and for us to be able to host some kind of event where we get a lot of people here to discuss it, since it's such a important report that people have been waiting for.
And so maybe it makes sense to have it posted, advertise that it's up in advance of the meeting with the public when we discuss it.
That would be really great. The other thing we can do is when we meet with the public, is if we have a summary of the report, just summary. So one page, whatever, half a page, itemizes the different parts of so people can read that. People who are going to be reading 40 or 50 pages, I think it's going to be difficult for people to recall all the details. But if we have that summarized in one page, easy to read, whether it's figures or graphs or so, that would make things much easier for people to really relate to the report.
So the draft as it exists does have a one-page executive summary. I'm not sure if it does what you want. I'd love to hear feedback, where you think it accomplishes that task. But does have that. Maybe we could produce something else that's more digestible.
So we can
And
take
just
a
to
look.
address your other concern, Commissioner Hoffman, if the body here feels that they would need kind of going over of the report before you're comfortable with doing a public event. I know there's certain Open Meeting Act constraints that we can't all meet, but I'm happy to run multiple sessions, even walking people through kind of what was done and how to best discuss those things. If that's one way to help prepare.
Now, with these meetings, would Zoom meeting would be legal, or we have to have an open meeting, even if we don't have a quorum?
My understanding is if we do not have quorum, then we can meet on Zoom.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
But you cannot make any
We
decisions.
can't make any
Right.
decisions.
We wouldn't be.
But I could present, right?
But he can,
I believe.
yes,
present.
yes, you can.
Exactly. It's just for us to take some notes or so, but not to make a decision on the
Right.
findings.
Okay. Can I have a motion, let's do this one thing at a time, about summer meetings? It looks like that the body would like to not have our meetings in July and August. That's what I have heard, and if someone has something different to say, then please,
My children, thank you. That's, I'll say that.
Okay.
That much.
can I have a motion with regard to summer meetings?
I'll so move that we cancel meetings for July and August 2023.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second,
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that's settled. So we won't have meetings in July or August. Now, let's discuss, I think maybe we already have, whether we want to use the report, Dr. Karpiak's report, as a basis for a public meeting, and I would suggest it should be in September, rather than trying to get it together in June. Any discussion of that issue? Somebody want to make a motion?
make a motion to discuss the report in our September meeting.
And you want to make that an open meeting for the public, perhaps somewhere outside?
Open meeting with the public.
Is there a second?
If I could offer a friendly amendment to
Abs.
that. Just that we should put it on the agenda for June to discuss it among ourselves.
That's a good idea.
And again, I don't know, have some mechanism for us getting feedback to the doctor.
So you want to put all that in the same motion or
Yeah, I
a
don't know,
separate
that was-
motion?
yeah,
It's
let
up
me
to you.
write that down. No. Well, we can do it separately, I suppose. What's that?
Meet in June, discuss publicly in September.
Yes. Thank you.
Now, do you propose that our June, do this at our June commission meeting or at another meeting where the Ann Arbor Police are invited to talk about the report? Which would
Well,
be
I was suggesting we do it at our next meeting, and perhaps we could.
at our June meeting.
At our June meeting.
Okay.
We could invite a representative of the department to be
Okay,
here, to be part of that discussion.
okay. Commissioner Hoffman, will you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Was that also a second, Commissioner Milgram?
I'll second.
Okay. So it has been moved and seconded that we use Dr. Karpiak's analysis of the Ann Arbor Police Department traffic stop data as the basis for a public meeting to be held outside at our September commission meeting, and that prior to that, at our June meeting, we invite the Ann Arbor Police, and of course the public, and we would first analyze, or have it explained to us after we've had a chance to read it.
Yes.
Okay? That's the motion. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay. And we're going to, you're on our agenda for a little later as well.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, okay. I always like to report about where I've been invited or where I went. I went out to a community program this month in Saline, where the county representative spoke about county programs, supposedly dealing with equity and diversity and inclusion. interesting. I don't know if anybody saw, I don't know if it was broadcast anywhere. I thought it was when I read the blurb about it, they were going to be discussing a racial incident that they had in the school some years ago. But that barely came up. So,
That's interesting.
I know.
Yeah, Adrian. Oh, we were just remembering it was Adrian who spoke up at that board meeting, I
In
think.
2020.
In 2020, yeah.
Maybe it's progress.
The new police chief job has been posted, and so we will await to see what applicants apply, and hopefully we will have a seat at the table to interview the new chief, potential new chiefs. We will be sharing a table during the Juneteenth celebration. We're sharing a table with the Human Rights Commission. And so I volunteered for 2 hours. If anybody else wants to come out, that's June the 17th at Wheeler Park. And I was asking Ms. Janess today if we had something to pass out to people. And I don't know if any of you remember this, but we don't, we're going to get it redone. I'll pass it around. We're going to get it redone with the, this has the name of commissioners from a couple years ago. So we're going to change that, and we're going to get a picture. All right, so we'll see if maybe somebody can take half of the the group, and then somebody else change up and take the other half of the group, so we get everybody in there. So hopefully I'll have these done by the 17th. Ms. Janess has explained to me exactly how to do it, so I think I can handle it. But if anybody wants to see these, yeah.
I think one thing I would suggest that we just had discussion towards the end of the day where when you excuse yourself from the meeting. And I think instead of passing papers, I'm suggesting that we have fridge stick-on magnets. And what you have is you have the mission, the name, the mission, what we do, just few lines instead of the card. And we were talking about the card. And also our contact information and where people can complain, which, it's just all the information. They can slap it on the fridge. Instead of, we don't have to have pictures of us, we don't have to have whatever, because people are going to, I don't know how long they're going to keep this, but the fridge magnet, and you can make it any size you want, plus we have budget for it. I would,
And I'd be happy to entertain a motion, but I think for sitting down at the table, this upcoming event, we need to pass out paper. I got a thing about paper. Y'all remember that?
We can do both.
Yeah. Do both?
Sorry, microphone. I think paper is good, but I do think that, lots of people are thinking about being more sustainable. And I know lots of places worry about passing out literal paper that then gets discarded. And so maybe if you have something like a magnet, people might not be as inclined to discard it, but you might have something printed at your table that people could look at that might suffice for paper instead of necessarily handing it out. But you'll be there as well, and I'm sure you'll be able to give people a riveting understanding of what ICPOC does, which people would be likely to remember.
Which I'm happy to give a riveting description as I hand them a piece of paper. So unless there are some objections, I'm gonna get those printed up.
We can also.
We had them before, they were
Yeah.
passed out, and we're gonna have some paper. And I will see if somebody can research and, do I get refrigerator magnets at the same place that prints up? Yes?
The people
Where
that
is
do
these
business
printed?
cards can do them.
What is it, just the print?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it is, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
We could do that, or you could also check with one of our local print shops that they help with the bicentennial and other stuff too. They might be willing to do our print work.
There's a logo already in the format that they need.
Yes.
There is a logo. I just saw it today on my cards, which I'm going to try and get on the paper. And so if anybody wants to research the whole refrigerator magnet thing and maybe design it, I don't have time to do it. We do have a budget for it, and I'm happy to pass them out.
I'm not volunteering to design the magnet. I just wanted to suggest the idea that we could get a QR code and link it to a PDF of this. So you can give the folks a choice of, do you want a piece of paper, or do you want to scan the code on your phone and get a copy of the flyer, the PDF, and then folks can.
Do they do that at the
Yeah.
same print place? I just tell them that I want a.
Well, we could print it and just put it on the table.
Well, no,
We can ask
I have my
IT.
directions as to how to get it printed.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just saying, we can ask our IT folks to make sure a copy of this document is on a link on a website. We put the link into this little code, and people
And you
just
can
use their
do it
phone.
yourself. I
Yeah.
get it. So we had a bunch of
I
meetings.
can't do it myself. No.
I've done it myself, I'll just say that. We had some meetings outside where we wanted people to have access to information, so we had a
Right.
QR code, because people often take pictures of documents.
Right.
Instead of having a piece of paper, they keep it on their phone.
Right.
And you can make what's called a tiny URL, and you can have a link to the document, the flyer, and then you can make a QR code to any URL in the whole world, and when people scan it, poof, it comes up on their phone.
The you can be me, since I brought it up, so I can do that. I'll work on that. Yeah,
Okay.
don't take notes, Stephanie, I'll do it.
I write things down on paper. Okay, so we're going to be working on this to get it done by June 17th, so we can pass it out.
Okay.
Okay, good, thank you.
And it'll continue on into the future. The next time you go somewhere, you'll have a QR code and some refrigerator magnets. So as you go around to visit other community places.
So you're doing the refrigerator magnets as well?
No.
No, just the QR code.
Just a print.
I'll do the
Just a
QR
print can do
code.
that.
I don't know,
The business card place can do
I
that.
don't have a fridge that you can stick a magnet
Business
to.
card people can do the refrigerator magnets.
The business card people can
You
do
just
the
have to say what you
refrigerator.
want on
Right.
it.
Yeah. And size-wise, whatever you want a big one, small one.
Just like
for
the
people
size
who
of a
have
business
issues
card.
with reading, one for the older folks, one for the young folks, whatever.
It can't be
Okay,
too
well,
big.
the chair will be in touch with those with ideas for this, okay? And we'll get it done. Thank you. Next on my list is long today. Miss Jeanette's last day is tomorrow. I know, a big sigh. But I understand that we will have somebody, at least temporarily, until someone else is, until the position is filled. Do you want to say anything?
I know that the city is in the process of interviewing applicants to fill my position, and I don't know when that turnaround will be, but it has definitely been my pleasure to serve as the staff liaison for ICPOD, truly. I miss you all. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we received a notice for an RFP from the Community Policing Innovation Initiative. That's the organization that funded Dr. Karpiak's study. So they're into a second round, and they are requesting proposals. If anyone has any proposal, I think is that attached to our?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have the information, and anyone watching, if they have a proposal for any type of study or whatever, training that they think ICPOC would be interested in, let us know. You can give me a call or shoot me an email, and we'll see if the deadline is middle of June, so say we just got it 2 days ago. And I think that is, oh no, Commissioner Pipkin, do you want to talk about the cards now?
If you want. So I passed around, the top is what I put together, and then I also put on what the current in our police department, business card looks like. So this is what the front looks like, this is what the front of what I was proposing. I kind of just replicated what they had on theirs. And then on the second page, on the top left is the back of the business card from the Ann Arbor, City of Ann Arbor Police Department. And then under that is what I put in and put together. So I took out, so I kept the victim's rights information, and then I took out the part about, to apply if you have questions with the crime victim services, because it talked about Lansing versus somewhere locally. And then I inputted ICPOC's information there. And then I also disclosed the City of Ann Arbor Attorney's Office information on the far right. So I'm not sure, because I wasn't sure if we needed to keep the losses that are not covered information, if that needed to be there under the victim's rights or not. So that's as far as I got with the mock-up of the business cards for them.
Okay.
So anybody thoughts?
Go ahead.
My only thought, this is great. I like the way you condensed this down. My only thought is, I wouldn't put the person's name on there, because then that way, every time a staff person turns over, every police officer's card needs to get reprinted. So I would just leave it as ICPOC, and then for the email, to put the ICPOC@a2gov.org email, which would be checked by the person, and then that way it saves us on having to reproduce them.
Thank you.
No problem. Now, does the City of Ann Arbor Attorney Office, does that information need to be on there? I just, like I said, I just put that because I saw under the check boxes at the bottom of their business card, they list they had the prosecutor's office and the City of Ann Arbor. But that was if you wanted more information about the victim's rights, to check those boxes. So I just didn't know if your information needed to be on there for contact purposes or.
Okay. Any other, I would suggest that we put this on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
And everybody take a look, take a hard look, and we will need to, and then we'll hopefully can vote on it the next time, that this is something that we want, with any changes that anyone wants to make, or corrections, or anything like that. Let's all look at it. And once we decide as a commission that this is something that we want to present to the police department, then we can do a resolution requesting that they use this as the police cards, I would think. What do you think, Councilwoman?
I don't know if we have resolutions for, I guess, internal operations. Maybe, we can check with Administrator Mahoney.
I'm thinking a resolution to the police department, rather
Yeah.
not through council necessarily, but,
Oh,
and request, let them know that we want ICPOC to be part of their card that they hand out, and this is what we suggest.
sure. I don't know, have we communicated via resolution to the police department before? Oh, okay. I can check if that's the process. Are you asking me to check if that's the process? I can check if that's the process, or if we can just ask them to do it.
Okay, all right.
I have a question.
But they can't say no.
So in case they don't want to pick this up, is it an opposing matter of them just carrying ICPOC cards around to pass out and, simultaneously when they give out their business card?
A separate card?
Yeah, two separate cards versus having to make a whole new. business card for them?
You'd have to worry that, you'd have to print lots of cards that may or may not be handed out. They're under no obligation to hand them out. You have to wonder about conflict of interest, would they like to hand them out? And if they're not mandated to do so, then you should not expect that they would do so.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which brings me to a question I was thinking about for the Policies Procedures Committee. Is there a policy, and you might not know now, maybe for next meeting, is there a policy that says if requested, an officer must give their card?
Yes,
That's already a policy?
it's already a policy.
Good, good. If you can just pull that out, just so we have it
Okay.
at the next meeting. Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Pipkin. That's good work. Thank you so much. That is all that I have. And now we're going to move to the report from the Vice Chair, Commissioner Tadoro Hargrave.
Thank you. So for our training and reoccurring training dates, I know we tried sending out an email to find a training date, and then we did a doodle poll. I'm wondering if we can come to an agreement that we would just have a standard day of the month that would be training days. If you could make it, you can make it. If you can't, you can't. It's not mandatory, but it would be, say, for instance, the second Wednesday of the month via Zoom, during lunch for 1 hour, or the third Saturday in the morning for an hour in person somewhere, or something like that. If there is a preference that folks have, that we can really have a set time when we can go through stuff. I'm going to be meeting one-on-one with Commissioner Pipkins to review some stuff so we could start getting the ball rolling. But does anybody have a preference? I know the information managers tend to meet on Thursdays. Our last couple were on Thursdays at lunch, so maybe a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Does anybody have a preference? Is there days that you absolutely would not be able to do it? What are your thoughts? Anybody?
I'm
Anything?
pretty much open
You're
in
open?
those times,
Okay.
or any day,
Okay.
lunch, pretty much.
Yeah, those dates are good for me, except the summer. Summer, I'm just not available at all during the daytime.
Right.
so.
Okay. Cool. So then, in the next couple days, what I'll do is I'll figure one out that kind of works out, and send that out and get everybody's thoughts and see moving forward from there. But we'll get that set up so that we start getting some reoccurring items, and we may be able to do some things, Dr. Karpiak, like he was saying, to meet with those small groups. We could use one of these training sessions as an opportunity to do that too. So I think having them reoccurring really does open up our ability to have those types of meetings and share information also. Excuse me. Updates on internal policies and procedures. I am still working on that. Hopefully in June, I'll have at least one, if not two, prepared in draft for your reviews. But more and more things are coming up that we'll be working on. One of those will be IT is setting up a system for us so that we can work together confidentially on the city system with sharing draft documents and so on. So that'll be a policy there of how we'll do that. And I'm still also working on the community liaisons policy so that third-party liaisons can begin submitting complaints on behalf of others. So that's where we're at there.
So where are we with regard, how close are we to
To the
setting up?
dashboard.
Yeah. the dashboard.
So I sent another reminder to IT today. We did get a response that we have a new IT person in charge. He has asked to meet with me Thursday at 2:30. I'd like to have Commissioner Othman as the chair of the information managers there with me to get this moving along, but they are aware that we need this now ASAP. We do have the approval from City Administrator Mahoney, Interim Police Chief Metzer, and the City Attorney's Office from Jen Janeski. So we are able to access this data. We are just waiting for IT at this point to produce it for us.
Okay. So, is it possible, I'm asking this of the Information Manager Subcommittee, is it possible for us to do current complaints at the same time, to prioritize current complaints so that we can respond to the complainant? We've got complaints, a year old, that we have given no response to the complainant. So I'm hoping as we catch up, we can also be, hitting those new ones.
Part of that is that we just started getting the complainants' names about 6
Right.
months ago, I believe. So we didn't have them last year. We do have them now, but it does mean also going back into those records.
Okay. Okay, any other questions regarding internal policies or our training and recruiting? If not, we're going to move on to,
Oh, I'm sorry, I do have a question.
okay.
With the training and recruiting, how are things coming with the recruiting part of it? Have you guys gotten many applicants, or have you?
We actually did an interview today
Oh, nice.
of a friend of Commissioner Hoffman, and see, that's how you talk to people. But yes, so we'll be voting?
I think the decision was to go ahead with the nomination, and Ms. Janess will probably send whatever relevant information to inform the candidate that the process is in motion.
Good.
And we need to, I think I was told that there's 2 readings, I think, before the city council votes on the person. And all what he needs is just just the majority, because he lives in town.
In town.
He's from Ann Arbor, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so-
I have corresponded with him this afternoon.
So I think he's a good candidate and good person to join us.
Good. So if you have, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask another question, as far as the people who have to be reassigned or reappointed, I'm sorry. How does that work? Or do we hear back as far as that goes? Or is that a June meeting with the city council as well, or?
For reappointment?
Yes.
Then the city clerk's office will send you the information by the end of this month. Everybody is still commissioner until the 31st of May.
Okay.
So, again, the gentleman who's a new candidate was talked to by one of the current commissioners, and that's, how you get people interested sometimes, so. Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we move on? We're going to move on to old business. The ICPOC website. What's happening with the website?
So I know Ms. Janess had sent out an email with some links to other sites to get everybody's feedback. I don't know if anybody, there were quite a few there, if everybody had time to go through and collect your thoughts, but you can feel free to send any of that to me or Commissioner Pipkins, too, who's going to be working on that, I believe, the website.
Okay.
But we'll work on that, and I think also our new commissioner has some experience in communications, or our proposed or nominated commissioner has experience with communications, so I think that will be, he will be a great addition also. But if you can get any thoughts or ideas from the other websites, feel free to share them.
So are we not, we had talked about hiring an outside
So
developer.
what we would need to do is develop an RFP, and so within that RFP, we would give the outside agencies a description of what we were looking for. So I think the best way to understand what we're looking for is to get everybody's thoughts and feedback on what other websites are out there. And then, once we're able to do that, we would be able to move forward with hiring an outside agency to develop it.
Okay, good, thank you, makes sense. Any other comments, questions about the website? Okay, disability data, we've had it on the agenda, and we really don't know what to do with it. I think we know that it's not collected at this point. So,
A question is just, is this body interested in understanding, or is the city actually interested in understanding in what ways the AAPD interacts with people with disabilities? So that'd be the overarching question. Is city council interested in that? There was a time not so long ago that the city council was interested in data on gender. And they said, hey, traffic stops, we need to start collecting gender information. That had not been collected. It has not been 25 years that it's been collected. So that was fairly recent. It hasn't been 20 years. And so, disability advocates across the country are very concerned about interactions with the police. In the course of serving as chair of this body, I have talked to many, many people with disabilities, visible and invisible, parents of people with disabilities, and they have grave concerns about the way that their family members interact with the police. And so the question really is the city interested, is this body interested in even understanding something as simple as, what are the ways in which, or how often does AAPD understand that it comes in contact with people from disabilities communities? That's not necessarily easy data to collect. Some people disclose, others don't disclose their disability status. That happens in ways other than in traffic stops. It happens through calls for service. It happens in many, many different ways. And I think this commission just has to determine whether that's something in which it's interested. That was certainly something that came up as we looked at, traffic stop data, and as we looked at laws, for example, the Philadelphia law, in which Councilmember Harrison sort of modeled her proposal to City Council. But people with disabilities are stopped disproportionate numbers of times. They come in contact with police disproportionate numbers of times. The numbers of people who are killed by police disproportionately have some disability status. I think it's an interesting thing to pursue. Obviously, I won't be here to take that on, and I know I'm the person who brought it to the fore, but it's really just, is that something that you all want to pursue? I mean, obviously you don't pursue it because I was interested in it. It's got to be something you all decide is important that you want to pursue. Maybe it's something you table or shelve and look at some other time, or whatever, but I think it's a question that will come up over and over and over, and has come up already in many different contexts. And so whether that's young people, whether that is drivers, whether those are people walking around, whether those are people who call for service for help with, their loved ones. It's a significant issue and has resulted in, many outcomes for people with disabilities, so.
I think one of the questions probably we need to ask the AAPD is, do they have some kind of training in relation to individuals with disability, whether visible disability or invisible disability? And if not, would they want to have that as part of their training? Because that would really help. If they have the policy over there, it might be easier to probably incorporate the data. If not, we have to start somewhere.
I think that there is an interest. I think we need to think about the timing of, we have a lot of data that we're trying to get, right? And so some questions that come to mind is, are there police departments who are already collecting this kind of data? How do they do it? since we know AAPD is not doing it at this point. And maybe so some of the research that needs to happen is which departments are currently doing it, how do they collect the data, how is it used, all of those kind of things. And so it makes me think, we have Ms. Janess who's leaving, and this is not her role, but maybe at some point, we should be thinking about how do we use some of the leverage, how do we use some of the expertise at some of the universities with interns or other people to do some of this gathering of information, right? I don't know about you guys, but everybody has full-time gigs and other things, and I don't have another 20 hours a week to commit to trying to do the research. But we need to maybe figure out some strategies with these kind of things that come up. Who can we get to do the research to bring the information back? And to me, this is one of those, let's gather some information to find out how it's currently done, who's currently doing it, and then that informs us with how we might have this added to strategies for AAPD to do it, and why.
And I can start by forwarding you guys a report from the Department of Justice from 2021 that looks at 6 categories of disability status: ambulatory, vision, hearing, cognitive disabilities, self-care. I don't remember what the other one was, but there are law enforcement agencies that do collect that data, and you can kind of see what those categories are and maybe even how they collect it. And then I would just suggest that probably before asking for training, it's good to put the data probably before the request for training. If, AAPD says we only encounter one person with a disability every year, then instituting a training program doesn't make sense. I know that's not the case, but I think understanding what that quantity is a key question. And if they don't know what that is there a way for them to start determining that might be a thing? And I think asking for data, if you remember anything from me howling about traffic stop data, takes at least years if the data exists. It takes years if the data don't exist. And so asking for data will not get you data anytime soon. And if you want it anytime soon, you have to start asking for it long before you want it from the police department. So, other law enforcement agencies certainly collect that data, and I'm happy to share, at least this report. It's a pretty big one that looks at how data were collected and what types of categories of data were collected, as well as statistics on how often those people come in contact with police. And that might be something, but it's really, as Bonnie mentioned, you guys have a lot of irons in the fire, and I think things on this commission move when there's someone who has a particular interest in them. So,
Agreed.
Pragmatically speaking.
Yeah.
Is it possible to work with the Disability Commission and see if they can help us with identifying we're going to be looking for data and the police encounter, et cetera. But I think if the Disability Commission or the chair can help us in identifying some areas where these are important, and we need to make APD officers aware of these cases or these individuals. Maybe that would help us, because now what we have is we have more than one commission in the city interested in the data.
And he's indicated that he's happy to collaborate with us. Nick has, so.
Okay, well, it sounds like there is some interest from this commission, and I thank Commissioner Jackson for forwarding that information to us. And why don't we leave it on the agenda for next meeting? And by that time, we'll have had an opportunity to look at that data and decide if we want to move forward, if we want to contact the Commission on Disabilities and see what input they have and see how we want. But it sounds like there's at least enough interest to look at this information.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll leave that on the agenda. The discussion of pretextual stops, Councilwoman Harrison, it's my understanding that we want to not talk about this today and move it on to the June agenda?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
I'll talk a little bit about it. So just want to share a little bit about some of the work that I've been doing around this. I actually have had the opportunity to join a cohort that's being run by the Vera Institute of Justice. And it's called, it's STOP. The title of the cohort is STOPS Cohort, and it stands for Sensible Traffic Ordinances for Public Safety. And it's jurisdictions from around the country that are working on this type of ordinance, basically. Yeah, so it's really great how and I actually found out about that through the council member, Thomas in Philadelphia. So he kind of got me connected with them, and it did start in April. It's monthly. We have monthly cohort meetings, so it'll be 9 months. And, different jurisdictions will roll out their legislation over, different times. So, but just to give you a kind of an idea on timing, this will come to ICPOC for you guys to decide if you'd like to support at the June meeting. It is coming to City Council for first reading. It is scheduled to come to City Council for first reading, actually right around Juneteenth. So that's exciting. It will, so it should be Tuesday, June 20th will be the first reading. And then our, ICPOC meeting is the week after. So it'll come to you guys to decide if you will write a resolution in support. And then the second reading will be July the 6th, which will be a Thursday. So it is on its way. So we'll discuss it in June.
So that I'm
That's kind of
clear.
the timing right now, but
Yeah, on the dates. So
Yeah.
the first reading is going to be June 20th?
yeah, it's scheduled to be June 20th.
Scheduled to be June
Yes.
20th. So we had talked about some of the commissioners showing up and speaking, but will we have seen it by
So
then?
no, a time to come to speak would be for the second reading, is that right, Lynn? Right? Would be?
There should be public comments on,
There will be public comments for both, but the way it worked out is that the next meeting, next ICPOC meeting is the 27th, June 27th. So, I mean, the only way that you could is if we had a special meeting, so.
Okay,
um,
okay.
And, we just kind of, just the symbolic nature of Juneteenth, I mean, that's kind of how we decided on the date. Was that it essentially with it'll go on the agenda, because it'll be public. It'll be public on Thursday, the Thursday before Juneteenth. So it's a good opportunity for me, for us to promote it during the Juneteenth events and to, drum up interest in folks coming and speaking. And, I honestly never really, I didn't know when this was going to come. I actually only thought about Juneteenth last week, the timing. I had no idea this was never planned. But it's appropriate, I think. And it's ready. From what I can see, what's been, presented and, the language. And, certainly with this, there will be coverage in the media. So it's, again, Juneteenth, to me, I think is a really appropriate time, to roll this out. So, I mean, do you guys interested in having a special meeting prior to that? Or do you think, I think
you could probably just send the resolution once it's finalized to the commission.
Okay, you can do that too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do it that way.
Mhm.
Okay.
We're still kind of finalizing it. It's not finalized yet, but yeah, that's an idea. Okay.
Good idea. I know we had expressed interest
Yeah.
and support, but we hadn't seen.
Right,
it
of
yet.
course. I mean, I think at the last meeting that I was at, I believe, did we go down the list of the secondary stops?
Yeah.
We did? Yeah, okay, yeah. It hasn't changed much. There was omission. We switched out one. We did meet with interim Chief Metzer, and actually interim Chief Metzer and acting Deputy Chief have been invited to the STOPS cohort session in June, actually the second Tuesday, because it is geared towards law enforcement. So we were asked to invite our police chiefs and any other pertinent law enforcement. So they've been invited to attend that, which is really good. But yeah, that's an option too. We can send it out. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Can I just point out that this wouldn't have happened if Councilmember Harrison hadn't led the charge on this? I think council tries to speak to social justice work and criminal justice reform. I mean, we've made statements in affirming things from the county, like racism is a public health crisis, and we've affirmed things, but to actually change an ordinance and update an ordinance requires a lot of work from lawyers. So it's one thing to make a statement of, like a political statement, I think, and it's another to actually change how we conduct business in the city. So I can't thank Cynthia enough, Councilmember Harrison enough, for all the hours involved in the language, the legal language, the partnership with the prosecutor's office, and imagining what this might look like in community and having those conversations in community too. And hopefully that gives us a good sense of what we can expect from Ann Arbor going forward in advance of unarmed crisis response too, for public safety to be responsive and just. So thank you.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. I think it's a great move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Thank
so.
you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys for your support.
Okay, so I didn't specifically add this next thing to the agenda, but I have spoken earlier, everybody knows my feeling about making sure that if there are individuals who are putting out information, support, whatever, for hate groups, and if it is determined that, you know, some of our officers are involved in this kind of thing, then, and it's brought to our attention, I wanted to make sure that that is something that's actionable in terms of the discipline. So I'd ask Commissioner Milgram, I don't know if you're ready to report on that or not.
Yes, I mean, I have at least a brief update about it. I mean, I read through all of the regulations, made quite a few notes, with particular emphasis on your issue, and you had tagged 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found 15 regulations that deal in one way or the other with bringing disrepute or disrespect to the department. So I mean, there's a few questions that I have. They all raise some issues. None of them are. I mean, they're fairly vague. There's no specific penalty in mind. There's some, I'm not sure about public versus private actions and things like that. But, I mean, and then I did look at other aspects too, I have several comments about the overall set, including, by the way, there's references to a code of ethics that, and other pieces like that I'm not, in one case I know that it was referred to where you could find it, in other cases not. But I'm prepared to, what I'd like to do is spend a little more time on it, and I could draft a memo that raises all of the issues that I found, and we can go from there. I can certainly provide it by the next meeting, or before the next meeting, and we could discuss it then if you'd like. And by the way, I didn't remember seeing anything in these regulations about the issue that was raised earlier about providing a card upon request. So I'll look again
There's a business card policy, so if you didn't see it, it may have been taken down, but it
Sorry?
exists. There is a business card policy for police, and if you didn't see it, it may have been taken down, but you can inquire, you can just ask them what number it
Well,
is.
it raises the question about.
And they'll bring it up.
For me, about whether, is this, I mean, there's 15 pages of it, it's pretty extensive, but are there any other regulations that are germane, that exist within the department that I haven't seen here?
Yes, there are hundreds. There are about, what, 600 that you
Well,
haven't seen?
That was what, when we first discussed this several months ago, and I think maybe at our retreat, we were talking about how there were hundreds or thousands. But I thought more recently, I was under the impression that, well, maybe there aren't that many, and that these are them. So that's an overall question that I have about this, is, are these it? Are there others? Can we see them?
It's my understanding, because I left that retreat and looked further into it, it's my understanding that there are some that are on the website that are public facing. There are others that maybe were in the process of being updated and may actually be in the hands of the attorney's office. So you may want to contact Assistant City Attorney Janeski and see. But there are others that were in the process of being updated and approved and so on that are not on there.
So, yeah, so I can, I'd be happy to try to write a brief memo or something that I can circulate.
Good.
The issues that I've seen.
Thank you very much, and if you, let me know if you're not ready to do it in June. If you need to talk to the city attorneys or whatever, we can put it off till September. It's not like it's a looming issue. I just, it is an issue nationwide.
Well, maybe I will take a little more time to make sure.
Yeah.
So some of the questions that I have are answered, rather than just raising the questions in this memo. So
Yeah.
I'll keep you updated, but
Good.
I'll be working on it.
Good, thank you. Because I was going to say nationwide, these hate groups, terrorists, I call them terrorist groups. They've infiltrated the military, and the military is trying now to get rid of them. And I hope I speak for the commission when I say, if there are any of these folks in our police department, we don't want them. We don't want them. And so we'll see what comes with that. But thank you very much. Okay, new business. I already mentioned this new reinvestment opportunity. And so you have that to take a look at and see if you have any ideas. If you know any groups, and I know Professor Karpiak is here, he might want to do another study, I don't know. If you know any groups who might be interested, let them know. That's due mid-June. So I'm going to ask Dr. Karpiak if you have anything else for us. I'm thinking, the last we left off is that we're going to try and do something on Zoom before the June meeting with the police. Is that right? I'm returning to that issue because I'm not clear that we resolved it at all.
I'm a little confused. I thought that when we talked about doing a retreat with the police to review this data and move forward. So I think that might be something that doesn't necessarily need to get done before it's public, but I don't know if there's timeline constraints associated with it or anything like that. I think that my understanding, and granted, I'm not well versed in what this grant was, but my understanding was that that this retreat option was the way for this grant to provide us an opportunity to use the data and work jointly with the police to improve operations or procedures and policies and so on. So that's what the retreat was for. So to me, that's something that's totally separate from the opportunity of sharing it with the public and letting the public give us feedback. I think they're two separate things.
So do you
But I could be
envision the
confused.
retreat before the September?
I think it could be either, it could be before, it could be after. I think that, I mean, may want it after so we can be in the retreat with the feedback from the public. I mean, that's, but again, my vision of what this retreat is may not be correct, but that's what I got from last month's meeting.
So to be fair, the money that was left over for the grant is not for a retreat. It's for whatever the commission decides that it wants to do. So for example, if the commission decided to spend that money to have an event where the data were presented to the public, that is what the money could be used for. So the money that was left over could be used in any variety of ways, and you guys decided to use it for a retreat. Because but the money is not earmarked for a retreat. It was an example of one of thousands of things that could be done with the leftover money.
Is there a deadline that has to be used by?
No,
No, okay.
no. I'm told the answer is no.
Well, it's not imminent.
Well, I mean, it's not forever, but it's my understanding that when we decide what we're going to do, and I'm wondering, I think we have like $8,000.
Really? Okay.
Maybe it's just me, but I think that could do two things.
That was a lot of stuff.
I think we could get something with the police, have lunch, and still have something to serve when we have the community outdoors. I mean, to me, that's a lot of money. I don't know about anybody else.
I think so.
So, Dr. Karpiak, any advice? How would you like, you've heard what we're talking about doing. How would you like to proceed with this?
I'm happy with whatever works for you. My instinct is that it would probably be helpful for this board, who will be approached to ask with questions from the public and be expected to have answers. It would probably be helpful for you to feel comfortable with the data and its kind of conclusions before a public event. So I don't know how best that works. Again, I'm happy to attend these monthly training sessions or however we want to do that. Probably both in something like that and the public event, I'd invite my other colleagues, because I'm not the only one who worked on this. And I'm not even the numbers guy on it, so I'd want to make sure that the numbers guy is there. But he might have to attend via Zoom if it was this summer. So that might make us think about what venue that might be. But that would be my only suggestion there. We could, of course, talk more with Jessica Drake from the Community Foundation CPII grant, but my understanding was that you kind of had these implementation funds to do with them what you will. But there's also now the second round, which I think they're specifically wanting to involve people that were funded through the first round. So this body has a I think a priority above others who might be applying. And as you'll see in the report, there are a series of recommendations about how traffic stop data might best be shared and kind of transmitted in the future. And I believe a future grant might be able to do something like that, if you might want to consider. Or something like exploring this question of how to collect data on kind of disability, people with disabilities in contact with police. My own 2 cents as a social science researcher on that is that's probably not best handled by police collection of data, but by other kinds of social science inquiries, surveys, or other kinds of social science inquiry. I think could probably more accurately and quickly kind of give an assessment of how often and what types of contacts people with disabilities have with police, rather than looking to the police to generate that data, is another kind of thing. But you could talk with Jessica. That might be another kind of thing that this grant could fund in the future. I will not be a part of that.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
As far as this commission begins to take a look at the report and thinks about kinds of questions, do you have any guidance for us about, is there anything perhaps in particular you're most looking forward to hearing?
Well, I think that the baseline is just, can you understand it in a way that is useful to you? And do you think that the broader public can understand it? And if not, please try to highlight where and when, and if you have specific suggestions about how it might be changed.
I mean, is there anything, not having written a report like this, but having written a lot of things and
Sure.
then sending your baby out into the world, there's always something that you think, oh, I wonder how this is going to hit folks. I mean, is there anything that's top of mind for you about, that you're most curious about how people are going to feel about a certain aspect of it? Or?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm interested to see myself how this is received as a report.
I know sometimes people have like summary, and this is more scientific summary, and then you have another summary as layman summary.
Yeah.
For everybody who does not have the science to understand that.
Yeah.
And I think having both would be really important, because you can address the ones who know and the ones who don't know.
I think there's an executive summary. I know you haven't seen it yet, but it's a one pager, and it explains what they did, how they did it, what they found. And so that's probably for the people who don't want to get in the weeds about how the numbers were crunched. But it's a pretty straightforward, and then a little bit of recommendations of where you might want to go from there. So that first thing, the executive summary, is probably the thing you're looking for, and it already exists.
All right, well, thank you. I don't know that we all need to read this first. I'm wondering, under the training, Commissioner Tadoro Hargraves, if you see a need before the next meeting, or you see an opening or an opportunity before the next meeting to get together with the police or whatever, for Zoom or whatever, and Dr. Karpiak is available, if you can just send out an email, notify us, let us know. Otherwise, we should all be prepared in June to talk about this. Okay, anything else about the traffic study that we need to talk about? Okay, thank you. I don't know what this relocating to the basement conference room means.
It's an opportunity. The HRC has moved their meetings to the basement conference room, and I just wanted to ask if you were interested in doing the same as a commission.
My only question or / concern is that the basement does not enable us to have colors hybrid, like zoom in. And one of the things that I like about being here is that you have that ability, but it also gives the caller an opportunity for anonymity, because they don't have to give their name. They can just use their last 4 digits of their phone number. We wouldn't, and so that would be with regard to a public forum. We wouldn't have that ability if we were in the basement.
And you are live over here.
Yes, I believe.
You would be live on YouTube, you just will not have hybrid capabilities.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Sounds like we want to stay here.
Okay, then I'll leave it as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Report from the committees. The subcommittee on policies, we've already talked about. Commissioner Milgram, unless you have anything else.
I think I do.
Okay, thank you. City council update? We've had a little bit of that, but council,
We passed our budget for the next fiscal year, and unlike in past years, it was pretty quick work. Mostly, we accepted the city administrator's proposals, and he had assigned us $1.1 million that was unallocated from the marijuana revenue, excise tax revenue. That was really led by Cynthia, Councilmember Harrison, myself, Councilmember Aisha Ghazi Edwin for a good, almost half of that million. So we had $250,000 that was already taken off the top and already dedicated to unarmed crisis response, so that we wanted to use reoccurring revenue to supplement what we had set aside from pandemic relief funding, ARPA funding for that. But our budget amendment, well, Cynthia can speak to the $400,000 that you led on this.
So I had come out and said that I thought that the marijuana excise tax revenue should, some of it, a good portion of it should go to support individuals that were impacted by the criminal legal system and the war on drugs. So, there's a kind of determined a gap with this population that they really, the experiences they've had with incarceration or just, being impacted by the criminal legal system is traumatic. And so there's a lot of weight those individuals are carrying around, and they need a lot of support. And many of them are, living amongst the community. Some of them have housing vouchers, but they're not living in an Avalon housing setting, like a supportive housing setting. They're just in the community. And so what we, $400,000 was appropriated to basically support these individuals with trauma-informed wraparound services, supportive housing, and case management. And that's going to be run through the Ann Arbor Housing Commission. So that's what Lynn was talking about. That was the resolution that I worked on. So, I feel like I kind of came out and said, hey, I think this money should go towards this, to support this population. So I was able to, that was a win. I was able to kind of follow up on my promises for that, for some of that marijuana excise tax revenue.
It was also an educational opportunity. Usually budget amendments are just 2 lines of, this is what we, here's why we want money to go towards something, and please have this money go towards something. But Cynthia wrote this resolution, a budget amendment with a lot of whereas clauses to explain the history, the need, examples of what wraparound services can look like, the impact, and why the specific community needs addressing. And the inequities that persist, in particular for this community, with tenant-based vouchers versus our folks with our public housing vouchers, to give them a fighting chance at accessing housing and staying in housing and receiving the services they need. So that's $400,000, $500,000 from the marijuana tax excise revenue also went towards a split between youth programming and eviction avoidance work. In the beginning of April, we had about 100 families in the county who were at risk of being evicted as county funding ended, and council did a budget amendment from our general funds for $300,000 to stave that off, and then the county, I think, matched it. But we knew that evictions are still on the rise, rent increases are still continuing. Supplemental SNAP benefits ended in March, so we knew families were still struggling. We want to give a good portion of that towards that work, and that will be administered through the Housing Commission as grants. So that's $500,000, and then the remaining $100,000 was dedicated to the Delana Center, to the Shelter Association. Some of that was in response to how, Delanis is housing folks, they're at their seams. And there are folks who, they're doing their best to trying to find alternative housing for folks, like negotiating with extended family members, saying, if we can find a way to make sure that they get treatment and services during the day, would you consider housing your relative at night, as we try to figure out how, there's just no room at Delana's right now. But when we did pass this resolution for this $100,000, I did make it a point to my colleagues and say that sheltering our houseless individuals is not the same or in replacement of supportive permanent housing. So the housing crisis still needs to be addressed as we approve rezoning changes and encourage more market rate housing. And at some point, find a way to find enough capital to build our own public housing that we've dedicated, that we've dedicated ourselves to. Shovels are not in the ground for East Catherine or for the Y Lot, but I actually have a resolution coming up, if I'm quick enough, June 5th, and asking the city administrator to look at how we can bond out our affordable housing millage revenue so that we can access that cash now and build now or buy additional parcels now, because the building costs are just so high, and the status quo isn't helping us either. So not necessarily public safety police related, but certainly I think we all worry about what puts folks at risk of incarceration. The police budget remained largely the same, 32 million. I wanted to bring up a couple things. I don't know if folks have read there was a USA Today article on interviewing Molly Moffitt and her daughter's death in the wake of allegations of sexual assault by football players. The article is pretty intense. It involves Molly. I know Molly Moffitt from the Neutral Zone when she was on staff there. Her daughter Quinn. I have a Quinn myself, so I was pregnant with my Quinn, and so we would often talk about our Quins. I'd encourage commissioners to read this article because I think it really speaks to how broken, how broken the process can be for victims and their families when it comes to understanding what options are available after sexual assaults. So there's the allegation, there's the Title IX process at the university, is that right? And then there's our own police and the investigation. They could not continue with the investigation because Quinn she died. So they, without evidence, they couldn't investigate further. But I think the question remains, how do we stop potential additional harm for women in our community? How do we talk about sexual violence? What are the resources that are available? And how does the university work or does not work well with our police? And I know there's frustration with our police, and they've responded and said that they've done everything they could, and they did bring this up to the county prosecutor. But from my own understanding, I've been trying to ask folks to just walk me through, what are the barriers for victims to report? And, everything from, are there enough clinics to report the assaults, because I'm hearing from nurses that there aren't, to, it's not training for our detectives or officers, but I guess, how can victims feel trust in coming forward? So I just want to share that. I don't know if there are folks here that'd be interested in learning more about that, but that's something I'm looking into. And that's also in relation to Jude's murder too, because we have folks in community who are asking council members to take a closer look at gender-based violence, actually reviewing what our city does in response to it, comparing us to what other cities do, and looking at funding that's available to do this, as well as proposing a new commission. We have a lot of commissions. So one focus on gender-based violence, I think, might be, I feel like that's probably a discussion we can host either here or in Human Rights Commission before we start a new commission. So if there's interest in that, that's something some of us are looking into. And speaking of Jude, her friend had shared details on her memorial service. That's June 7th at First Unitarian Universalist off of Ann Arbor, Celine at 5:30. And the memorial starts at 6 with a gathering at with a gathering from 6:45 to 8:30.
Thank you. Thank you.
I gotta chime in and say I'd be remiss if I sat here and didn't bring up to that the rate at which men are sexually assaulted as well. So we're not just looking out for women, particularly on college campuses. We know that number is unreported but significant. So
Thank you. Just to talk about, just for a minute, the issues of those who have been victims of the criminal system with regard to marijuana particularly. I applaud our council people here for looking at that. And one thing I wanted to say, one thing that I learned that I did not know at this gathering that I went to in Saline is that, and our prosecutor was there, they do expungements for free. And so I'm putting that out there. Anybody happens to be watching, they will contact your prosecutor's office and they will help you through that system for expungements. And I just thought that was a great thing that we need to know about.
The city of Ann Arbor does them too. So that was one of the things we looked at was part of the money going to go toward expungements, but evidently it's funded. And I think we're just doing an average of 3 per month is the number I was given. So, yeah, the city of Ann Arbor does do them as
Good.
well.
Good, we need to know that information and make sure that it's out there.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, and that's through the city prosecutor office, if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. County prosecutor and the city attorney, I would imagine. Okay. Okay, are there any other committees? Anybody wants to make a report at this point before we move on to communications? Ms. Janess, do we have any communications?
Yeah, the interview of the
Okay.
special candidate.
Okay.
And I think he's a good potential member of this commission.
Okay.
The other thing is, I think we are being updated on the police chief search. So they keep us in the loop. And the search is open till, I think, the 19th of June. There was some information, but that's all that not fair to disclose. But there is an update on the search, and we are being given the information as the process is going on.
Thank
Much
you.
better than previous years.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else that anyone needs? Yes.
So this is my last meeting.
I thought next week.
Nope, this is
next
it.
month.
This is it. So I wanted to say goodbye.
Oh,
And I wanted to say how much it has been a pleasure doing this work. I should not say it's been a pleasure doing this work. It has not been a pleasure. It has been blood, sweat, and tears. More tears than blood, for sure. When I was approached about joining the commission, one of the things that I thought might be useful was that I had been a researcher and I had spent, decades thinking about data. And so it is fitting that my sort of pet project in thinking about this traffic stop data is where I will go out. I'm very, very happy about that work. Because I serve on the State Oversight Commission of MCOLS, I have been talking to Michigan State Police as they were going through that process, and, they understood that they would find some disparities, but they were very happy, maybe they weren't happy, but they were very willing to get that data out there. And since it's been out there, there has been no uprising, there's been no backlash. It has just been what people expected, but it has been helpful. And in some quarters, there's been increased trust because they were willing to say the hard thing. I certainly hope that happens here. That's my expectation. I am very grateful for all the work I've gotten to do here, and I'm very grateful for all the people that I've gotten to work with. I was able to do the Washtenaw Equity Partnership with the Vera Institute as well, and their front-end prevention committee, thinking about how to prevent people from getting caught up in the criminal legal system in the first place, particularly at the police level. I was really happy to collaborate with the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security as they thought about how to train police for a variety of encounters and the kinds of things that oversight professionals thought about in terms of those trainings, and the kinds of things we thought could not be trained out. I'm very happy to have collaborated with people in the search of what we might do next. Thinking about meeting with Paul Fleming and Lynn Song and Mayor Taylor so long ago to think about unarmed response, and hopefully that coming to fruition. Certainly enjoyed collaborating with Professor Karpiak and others across the city, but I'm very grateful for the trust that people have placed in me and in us. I'm so grateful for the people who have come and told their stories, and for people sharing not just their fears, but their hopes for what Oversight can do. I have always been worried that the city of Ann Arbor wanted to say it had oversight more than it really wanted what oversight would bring. And I think that's a valid worry, and I think it's something that if we think about all the time, we can keep at bay, and that we can provide some real oversight. I think we have the opportunity to pull back the veil a little bit and look behind the curtain, and hopefully let people know about some aspects of policing that maybe they don't think about. I am very happy that finally we have what other oversight commissions have in terms of being able to see officers' names, and finally being able to see complainants' names, things that other agencies took for granted but that we had to fight for so hard. Sort of basic things I think that people think that oversight professionals do. We had to fight so very hard for, and I hope that you guys are up for continuing to fight, because although I think Ann Arbor likes to run on personal relationships, I think, and that's great as long as you're really cozy with whomever you have to work, but I think operating according to policy is equally important. And I think that being cozy, but also alternatively having some distance and some objectivity is going to be important as well. And I hope you guys are up for that. I hope you have the calories for the fights that will be coming up. I trust that you do. Stephanie and I have talked about it. I think she's in a unique position to bring some of her prosecutorial and city attorney acumen to the job and bypass some BS. So I hope that you guys keep up the good fight. It's a tough one, and nobody knows that more than I do, but it has been a pleasure. Denise, we have never had a stronger champion, warrior, and protector of this commission. It was a joy to work with you. The work we did would not have gotten done without you. That is truth. And so I am so grateful to have spent time working with you and with all of you commissioners through all of the battles that we've had, the war rooms that we were in, the deep dives that we went into through some of the drama. I think it just served to help reinforce why we're here. And so I'm so glad to have done this work.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. I have to apologize.
You should not apologize.
No, I do, because I thought you were going to be at the June meeting. I thought the June meeting was your last meeting, and I was working on a resolution of appreciation, and maybe we can still pass it even though you
Well, I will
won't be
watch
here.
you guys. I think I could watch you guys on TV or online after the fact.
Well,
But I will not be here.
we are hoping that at the meetings involving the traffic stop data, that you'll be there with us.
Be an
But,
audience.
you know, I don't know, I'm going to need a whole lot of help, because Denise is going, Lisa's going, and you all are stuck with me. And I just, I don't know, well, anyway, I want to express my appreciation. Lisa, Lisa fought the first battles and really got us over some hurdles and got us some respect. And we appreciate what you have done. And thank you
Happy to
so
do it.
very much.
Of course.
Thank you so very much. Commissioner Phillips, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, Commissioner Jackson, it's been a pleasure working with you, and your passion and your belief in oversight is evident, and though it sometimes people didn't understand that passion. We understood where it came from, and from a concern of honesty and wanting to make sure that there's some movement, and we appreciate that. And I want to say to Ms. Janess, your work ethic, your smile, your positive attitude, your ability to get things done on behalf of this commission, your professionalism has been very much appreciated. And you will be missed, and we hope that you have many days that you can sleep in and take nice walks and not have to worry about getting calls from any of us. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It has truly been my pleasure to, with you, Lisa, all of the commissioners. It has just been, I felt like I was just another slice of the pie. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, if there is nothing else, then I am going to ask if anyone would like to move to adjourn.
So
Before-
moved.
Before we do that, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be here in June, and I've spoken to Vice Chair Tadoro Hargrave, so she's going to be chairing the meeting in June. And so everybody, please show up, so we have a quorum. So I've got a pre-planned out of town for the end of June. Okay, so now,
So moved. Adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.